Hello, welcome to my EFT for Anxiety Masterclass. My name is Nikki. I am an EFT practitioner. I'm also a trauma conscious yoga and meditation teacher. And I'm really grateful that you're here because I hope that the techniques that I teach you in this masterclass will bring you relief from your anxiety. So just a tiny little bit about me and what brought me to EFT. I found EFT a couple of years into my addiction recovery when I was really struggling to manage my symptoms of anxiety. I was struggling to manage my emotions, and I came across it in a book, and I thought it sounded ridiculous. I wasn't sure how it could work, but I was really open-minded and willing to kind of try anything because I just couldn't manage how I was feeling any longer, and much to my surprise, and I was surprised, I got instant relief from my anxiety. Back then I was a secondary school teacher working full time, and I remember some lunch breaks, I would go into my office, I would put a tapping video on, and because I just couldn't deal with how I was feeling and how anxious I felt, and I would tap along to this video and would just sort of go, just feel like this relief. So I just really want to be able to share EFT as a tool for anxiety because of my own experience of how well I know it works, of my clients' experiences of how well I know it works, and it's worked that well for me. I made the decision to train as an EFT practitioner and to leave full-time teaching and essentially, run my business teaching yoga, meditation and EFT. If it hadn't have been for EFT, I might never have passed my yoga teacher training exam. I remember the morning of the exam, I was petrified. I was convinced I was going to be rubbish. I used to have such negative thoughts about myself, and did some tapping that morning, and honestly felt in that exam that I taught the best I'd ever taught. I felt comfortable. I felt happy. The anxiety had gone, and it was just miraculous. And I have hundreds of stories of how EFT has been incredible in my life. So I really hope that you get something out of this masterclass. If you've got any questions, or if you want to chat to me about EFT, if you want to know anything more, all my contact details are on the last slide. Please reach out. I'm always here to chat and to answer questions or anything like that, and it may be that you want to dive deeper with the EFT and kind of really get to the roots of what's causing you anxiety. So please know that that's an option as well. So I hope you get on as well as I hope you do, and I will see you on the next slide. Okay, so Anxiety 101. First and foremost, I am not a physician, I'm not a doctor, so this information is from kind of my own experiences, my own understanding, my own research, and what I would really encourage you to do is obviously seek professional help as well. If you think that you struggle maybe even from, quite severe anxiety, I'd always say seek professional medical help as well. So that's kind of the first thing I wanted to say. And then the second thing is anxiety is a huge topic. We have feelings of anxiety and anxiousness that we can feel kind of just generally throughout our day. In my own experience, quite a lot of that comes from different fears. I could be fearful about what's going to happen in my day, and I get feelings of anxiousness. That could be physical feelings in my body, maybe nausea or dizziness, or maybe I feel like really edgy. Maybe I've got a million racing thoughts. Or it may be that I have that more frequently. It could be that we're talking about anxiety disorders, and there's different anxiety disorders. And again, I'm not qualified to kind of go into the details of those. What I would say, the internet is incredible for finding stuff out, aside from the negative side of the internet, it's actually also a really positive experience as well. So you may want to look deeper into your own anxiety. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then the third part is, you may or may not have heard of high functioning anxiety. And that can be more along the lines of that real negative inner critic voice that's telling you you're not good enough, telling you you're not doing enough, telling you you should be doing more, telling you you can't do this and you can't do that because it's not perfect. Might look like not reaching out for help when you need it, might look like needing to do everything by yourself. I personally definitely do identify with having a high functioning anxiety. Not always, but at some certain points. And EFT has absolutely helped me break down those different negative beliefs and clear a lot of them out. Am I completely cured yet? No, I think it's probably really important to say healing's a lifetime job. There's always going to be new stuff to come up to heal, but the process of healing is really what EFT is all about. We heal, we grow, we heal, we grow. It's kind of a constant forward motion. Sometimes we step backwards as well. So what even is anxiety? So the technical definition is it's our body's reaction to perceived danger. It's kind of like an internal alarm system. So you might have heard of fight or flight. And that's when we're in what's called the sympathetic nervous system. When we're in fight or flight, we're kind of on edge, we're looking for dangers. You might be planning ahead a million different things. You might be planning all the possible outcomes of a situation or a scenario to seemingly give a sense of control, so you're not going to be taken unawares. All of that can be attributed to being in the fight and flight system. And then one thing that EFT does, it takes us out of fight and flight. It takes us out of that sympathetic nervous system and it puts us into the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's the nervous system that helps us to rest and relax and actually ultimately do things like digest our food. That's a whole other story that I'm not going to go into, but, and things like yoga, meditation, mindfulness, all also help get us into that rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system. So what's going on when you're anxious? Well, there could be lots of different things. It could be millions of different thoughts. Usually anxiety is rooted in the future. So it's normally about things we're worried about happening, things that we're worried about taking place that day later on, when we're talking about it mentally. But actually we can have physical symptoms of anxiety, and I've experienced this myself where I felt physically anxious but I wasn't having any anxious thoughts. I remember the first time I felt that, I was quite like, I don't understand what this is, because I felt jittery in my body. I felt my heart rate felt faster. I felt on edge. Yeah, I wasn't thinking anything. I wasn't actually aware of anything I was particularly worried about. So we can have physical anxiety as well. You can have have both together. So for the purposes of this masterclass, I'm kind of talking about all anxiety symptoms. So the idea being that we can use EFT to help relieve the anxiety symptoms. So we can relieve the fears, the panic that sets in. We can relieve the physical sensations of anxiety. We can rewrite some of the beliefs, or at least start to change them, especially within the high functioning anxiety that's telling us, oh, you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, you need to do more. It's all just like stuck in a loop on our heads. So yeah, anxiety is a huge topic, that's why I've just kind of called it Anxiety 101, because obviously I think it's important to talk about anxiety, but we could do a whole course just on anxiety alone, to talk about the ins and outs of all of it. And we, again, like I said at the start, it may be that you're not you're not diagnosed with any kind of anxiety disorder, but in your day-to-day life, you're experiencing feelings of anxiousness or anxiety. Or it could be that you are diagnosed. Either or, for the purposes of EFT, it doesn't matter. EFT can help to relieve the symptoms that you feel. It might not cure your anxiety disorder, but when you're feeling anxious and when you're feeling overwhelmed, that's when EFT can really come into its own and can really help. One thing to also consider is that some of the anxiety, it could be historical. It could be from childhood when you were younger, and it may be that you don't really know what that is. And I'm talking about, trauma of whatever variety, that everyone, it's people are often quick to think, oh, well, I've not had any trauma, because people are thinking about huge, big life-changing events, but there's lots of different levels and subtleties to trauma. So it may be that there's some deeper healing to do or some deeper work to do. So it may be that you want to, engage in counseling or psychotherapy, or it may be that you want to deep dive with EFT. EFT is incredible at doing that job too. So that's a little bit about anxiety. One thing that I would suggest could be a good place to start before we even get into the tapping, and one thing that really helps me is journaling. So you could just get a piece of paper, or you could get your journal and just say, what does my anxiety feel like? What does my anxiety look like? And really see if you can get to know what your anxiety looks like. Write down the physical symptoms that you feel, if you feel physical symptoms. Write down the common thoughts that go around in your head. Write down when it shows up. It may be that you've got social anxiety, and when you're at home, you're perfectly fine and you don't experience it at all. But then when you've got to go out and you've got to do something, whether it's a small crowd or a big crowd, that might be where your anxiety shows up. So I really encourage you just to take some time before you continue with the rest of the masterclass. If you've got the time, obviously, if not, you can do this whenever. Just get to know your anxiety. One thing that you can do as well, we have got a tapping point here on the collarbone. And if, say, you're right-handed, you can just tap while you're right. The tapping itself will be quite soothing. So that way, it'll minimize the feelings of anxiety kind of coming up. So you can just tap, or you could tap on the side of the head. Just tap and right. You might not need to do that, but it will be useful to understand exactly what your anxiety looks like. And then as we go into the next part of this masterclass, you'll be able to tackle those different parts individually with the tools that I'm going to give you in the next part. So I know it's felt really quick to me for a topic which is so huge. So quick recap. Delve deeper into your own anxiety, what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, where it shows up. Journal on that. Do some research if you need to. And absolutely consult a doctor as well if you think you might have a more serious condition, a more serious anxiety disorder. And you can do that parallel with this work as well. So what actually is EFT? So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and it was invented in 1995 by an engineer called Gary Craig. And he had the realization that all negative emotions were a disruption in the body's energy system. And because with tapping, we combine talking about a problem with tapping on the energy points, the meridians within the body, hence being able to access the energy system part of the body, we're able to take the emotional charge out of certain past situations. You can take emotional charge out of current situations. The tapping itself has been now proven to reduce cortisol, which is the stress hormone in the body, And there are just like a million benefits for reduced stress hormone, better immunity, better well-being, better general health and well-being. So that can only ever be a good thing. And we tap on, as I said a moment ago, certain acupressure points on the body. The tapping itself then regulates the nervous system as well. So as I mentioned in the earlier slide in the Anxiety 101, the tapping itself takes us out of fight and flight and puts us into rest and digest, so into that calm, soothing nervous system, which is why then we can tackle issues, problems, feelings which otherwise might be too intense, because the tapping itself helps to regulate the nervous system, giving us a chance to be able to do the healing on whatever it is we need to do it in. So in terms of anxiety, EFT is a really brilliant way of very quickly regulating your emotions. So if you're in fight and flight, if you're in if you're really activated with your emotions, if you're feeling really, really anxious, the tapping itself will calm the nervous system. When I go into the basic recipe a little bit more, I'll explain a little bit more about that. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to show you the tapping points, because especially when it comes to anxiety and we might be highly activated in that moment, we don't need to complicate it with words as well. We can actually just start tapping. So the tapping points are the top of the head. You can use one hand, you can use two, whichever feels better. Then the middle of the eyebrows, and then the side of the eyes, just kind of down from the temples, under the eyes, under the nose, the middle of the chin, the collarbones, and then the side of the rib cage. So if you were feeling really, really anxious, the first thing I would suggest to do is just tap and breathe. You can just tap, taking a nice deep inhale and then breathing out. And then move to the next point. So again, just tap and breathe. So breathing in and then breathing out. On to the next point. Taking a nice deep inhale. Breathing out. Under the eyes. Under the nose. The middle of the chin. Down to the collarbones. And then the side of the rib cage. And then if you've just tapped along with me, just take a little moment, just notice how you feel in this moment. I know I feel actually a lot calmer. I feel a little bit, space is probably not quite the right word, but it's probably the closest word I can think of in this moment. Definitely feel more chilled. I feel lower down. I feel more grounded. So that is kind of where you can start. If you were in public, you might not want to do that though, which is a big chance. There's a high probability of that might be the case. If you can, go off to the toilet, go to the bathroom, get in the cubicle, and you can do it there. So you just tap in and breathe in. But what we can also do is we can just tap on one of the points. So they say that everybody has kind of a master point, and this will just take some exploration by yourself. And it may just be that you find the collarbone particularly soothing. I could probably sit here like this. People will probably not even notice. I could probably sit here like this, tapping on the side of my eyes, maybe even the side of my chin. You actually see people kind of instinctively tapping. But what you can also do as well, you can just rest the fingers on the point and just breathe. Nobody knows what you're doing. I just got my hand on my chin. And I'm just simply touching the points and breathing. And you can just pick one. I had a situation when I was in public and there was some kind of incident outside my house and I felt like I was going to have a panic attack. And I just tapped here, actually. I just tapped and breathed, and it really, really did actually work, which was wonderful because, my body can go into shutdown, actually, if my anxiety, my panic gets too far. It's related actually to an incident that I witnessed, so it is more PTSD. But even so, I was able to, in that moment, calm myself down. So that, in a really quick nutshell, is EFT. I could tell you like loads of facts and figures about it, but really for me, the beauty in EFT is in the actual doing of it. I could give you all the information about it all day long, but unless we just get into it and actually tap, then you just won't feel the benefits. So, that's why I've given you the main benefits, the most vital one being, that it calms our nervous system and that it reduces cortisol in the body. And it gets us out of fight and flight, which is what we need to do in terms of anxiety. So that's EFT in a nutshell. Have a go at just tapping and breathing on the points. You can come back and watch this video as many times you like. Have a go at just placing the fingers on the points and breathing, see how that feels, and just get used to what the tapping points are. And then in the next video, I'm going to teach you the EFT basic recipe, and there's a little bit more to that one, but I wanted to start off with something really useful, especially for anxiety relief. So I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so in EFT, there is something called the basic recipe, and it is what it says on the tin. It's the most basic form of EFT, but also the foundation of EFT and some of the most potent and powerful EFT you can do. So don't let the simplicity of the basic recipe fool you into thinking it's not powerful, because it absolutely really is, especially for anxiety, especially for heightened emotions, especially for when we're in a fluster and in a bit of a state. So in the last video, I went through the main tapping points and we just did tapping and breathing, which if you're really, really, really anxious, you're feeling really activated, dysregulated, however you want to describe it, start there, because this part, the basic recipe, we're going to include some words. So it may be that you're not in a place where you're able to engage your mind yet. Once you've done a few rounds of the tapping and the breathing and you feel a little bit calmer, then you can do the basic recipe. So for the basic recipe, the first point that we tap on is the side of the hand. So it's down from the little finger on this kind of fleshy part, and you just tap. You can tap with, the whole of the hand, the side of the hand, the fingers. It really doesn't matter, just so long as you can feel it and don't tap too hard. And then we do what's called the setup statement. So the setup statement is tuning us in to the issue at hand. So in this case, even though I feel really anxious right now, I deeply and completely accept myself. So even though I feel really anxious right now, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I feel really anxious right now, I deeply and completely accept myself. So you would say the setup statement 3 times. The parts that always stay the same is literally the beginning part. So even though, and then you can add whatever words in. So on the anxiety video, one of the things I suggested to do was to journal and to get to know your own personal anxiety. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it present for you? So it could be that you change this to, even though my heart feels like it's pounding out of my chest, I deeply and completely accept myself. Or even though my mind's just telling me that I'm not doing anything right, I deeply and completely accept myself as I am. So you can change that middle part for whatever you like. I don't want to get too confusing, but I really want to explain something else as well. So it may be that when I said, even though blah, 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 I deeply and completely accept myself. If when you heard those words, you thought, nah, I don't accept myself, I just don't know. If that brought up any type of resistance, all you need to do, instead of saying I deeply and completely accept myself, you can just say I'm open to the possibility of accepting myself. So even though I feel really anxious right now, I'm open to the possibility of accepting myself. Even though I feel really anxious right now, I'm open to the possibility of accepting myself. Even though I feel really anxious right now, I'm open to the possibility of accepting myself. And that's it. That's all you need to do. You could even change it to, I'm open to the possibility of accepting that's how I feel. You know, you can change it like that as well. So that's the first part of the basic recipe. Even though, state how you're feeling, and then deeply and completely accept myself, or open to the possibility of accepting myself, or I'm open to accepting that's how I feel. And that's the first part. And then the next part, we go through the tapping points just using the keyword. So, for example, for anxiety, 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 all this anxiety, 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 all this anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. And then you can check back in with yourself and run that again if you need to. You don't necessarily need to do the setup again to start with. You can just run the other points. What I would suggest you do is, before you start tapping, take what's called a SUD score. SUD stands for subjective units of distress, I think. And 10 is always the highest emotional I can't think what the word would be, the highest emotional state. So 10 absolutely could not be any more anxious in this moment, and 0 is nothing. Because it's really, really useful to see where you started and where you end up, because it can feel like nothing's changing. And what can actually happen after after a good few rounds of tapping, you forget how bad it was in the beginning. And you're like, oh yeah, no, I feel all right now. I don't think I felt that bad before. So it's always really, really useful to do the SUD score, to check in. So again, that could be, however anxiety is showing up for you, whether, so even though I am telling myself I need to do more, I could score that out of 10. Like, is that a 10? Yeah, like I'm literally telling myself all the time I need to do more. Or is it not that bad? And then I'm going to tap, So even though I'm telling myself that I need to do more, I'm open to the possibility of accepting myself. I'm going to say that 3 times. Keep telling myself to do more. I'm just telling myself to do more. 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 Keep telling myself to do more. I'm telling myself to do more. I'm telling myself to do more. And then just check in with the emotional intensity. And it might be like, okay, it doesn't feel quite as intense. Maybe it's an 8. So then you would go again and you would do the setup again. But this time you're going to say, even though I'm still telling myself I need to do more, even though I still feel anxious, even though I still, whatever the thing is, I deeply and completely accept myself. I'm open to accepting myself, or I accept how I feel. And then you go again and check in with the score. And that essentially is the basic recipe. You can do as many rounds as you need to bring the score down. Ideally, you're trying to get the score down to 0. But what I will say is, a lot of people find it difficult to let a score get to 0. So if you have suffered with anxiety for a long time, if it's almost a part of who you are, you might not know how to let that go down to 0. And for the purposes of this masterclass, that's okay. You know, anything under, you want to be anywhere from like 3 below. Anything from 3 below is absolutely brilliant. So that's kind of where you're heading. If you find that your score is going up, it means that something else is going on. So you might be saying, even though I'm anxious, I accept myself anyway. But maybe it's not anxious that needs dealing with. Maybe you've got a fear of something in particular that feels like anxiety. Maybe there's a deep-rooted limiting belief, like not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, not thinking you're going to be successful. There could be something deeper down within there. And that's one of the reasons why the basic recipe is a great place to start, because it can definitely help manage those big emotions in the moment, and it can definitely reduce your scores massively. But it can also be a way of showing us where we still need to do some work, where we still need to do some healing. And you know, that's a really powerful thing, and it's up to you whether or not you choose to do that. You might be quite happy with just managing the symptoms as and when they arise, but if it gets to a point kind of in your healing, you think, you know what, I'm ready to go a little deeper, peel back some more layers of the onion, you know, sort of pull this out, pull the weeds out at the root, so to speak, then you absolutely can do, you know, and you can do that still with EFT. I would suggest at that point, you know, working with an EFT practitioner. Hello, that's me. Or any EFT practitioner that you vibe with. You know, or, you know, you can even learn how to do EFT yourself, and go from there. There's a lot of resources out there. My communication channels are always open, so, you know, let's have a chat. But that's the basic recipe, and it is basic, and it's basic for a reason, because it's simple and it works, and that's what we need in those times when we're really dysregulated. So just to recap, the basic recipe is the setup statement said 3 times. Even though I feel really anxious, or whatever it is, I deeply and completely accept myself, willing to accept myself, or accept how I feel. And then you say that, like, anxious, 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 anxious. Check in with your score, and then go again. And what you can do, if you did do the journaling from the Anxiety 101 section, you will literally have a list of things that you can work through with the basic recipe. You can pick one every single day if you wanted. You could pick one every week. And you could just tap on each one and just systematically work through them. You know, that in itself would clear out so many kind of stuck emotions and stuck things within your energy system. It'd be a really incredible thing to do. So yeah, any questions, reach out. I really hope you feel inspired to have a go of the basic recipe. You can wait until you feel really anxious to try it, or you can jump to your journaling, pick something off there, and see how you get on. So when you start to feel confident using the basic EFT recipe, it may be that you want to go a little deeper, you want to do a little bit more. And what I thought I would do for this last video is do a tap along video, so you can tap along with me, and it's going to be kind of a general anxiety relief tapping. So you can use this when you feel like you need it, but I also want it to show you kind of the difference between the basic recipe and then how you can just create your own tapping routines. You don't have to be really rigid with the words that you say. You can get more creative. And again, it could be that you've got your journaling in front of you and you just include everything all at once. That could be too much. but it might not be. So it's something to experiment with, something to try. And it could be that you end up with kind of a personalized EFT video. If you did that for yourself, you could record it so you can play it back. And you can use that every day when you're not activated, when you're not feeling really anxious. You can use it kind of as a daily healing tool. And that's the other way that I use EFT the most. Number one is in the moment when I'm dysregulated and I need instant relief. But two, is a way of constantly changing my energy system, changing my beliefs, changing my thoughts and actions in a kind of proactive way. So that's what this EFT video will be. So if you're joining along, we're going to start tapping on the side of the hand. And you're just going to repeat after me. So even though sometimes I feel really anxious, I'm open to the possibility of accepting myself anyway. And even though sometimes it feels really hard living with anxiety, maybe, just maybe, I could accept myself anyway. And even though I'm not really sure why some days my anxiety is really bad, and I'm not even really sure why I've got anxiety in the first place, maybe I could be open to the possibility of accepting myself anyway. So even though some days the physical anxiety is a lot, even though some days the mental anxiety is a lot, I deeply and completely, just in this moment, I'm choosing to love, I'm choosing to forgive, and I'm choosing to accept myself fully today. Some days I'm really anxious. Some days I wake up anxious. I wake up with this kind of fear, and I don't know where it's come from. I just know some days I'm really anxious. Some days I wake up okay, but as the day goes on, the anxiety creeps in. So all of this anxiety, some days it's a lot, some days it's a little. So accepting all of this anxiety, and that doesn't mean I have to like it. It just means that I'm not resisting it. So all the anxiety that I feel, and all the anxiety that I've felt, in this moment I am choosing to accept myself anyway. I accept myself on the days when it's a lot. I accept myself on the days when it feels too much. I'm just open to accepting it all. Because maybe, just maybe, in that acceptance, I might be able to let some of it pass through. I might find it easier to sit in those moments when the anxiety feels too much. Maybe, just maybe, I can be open to the possibility of letting the anxiety pass through altogether. Who would I be without my anxiety? What could I do without this anxiety? Because maybe the anxiety isn't me at all. And if it isn't me, then I don't have to keep it. So I'm letting go of some of the anxiety. I'm letting my body know that it's safe to release a little bit. Letting my body know that it is safe. Letting my mind know that it is safe. And that it's time to start to let this go. So letting go of some of the anxiety. Releasing some of the anxiety. Releasing it all the way back through the past. Releasing it all the way up through the future. Releasing the anxiety and letting it go. Releasing the anxiety and letting it go. Releasing the anxiety and letting it go. I am letting it go. Take a moment. You might close your eyes. Just take a really nice deep inhale. Big sigh out. Just allow yourself just a couple of moments just to be in this little after tapping space. It can feel really calm and peaceful. But it also might not. It may be that some other stuff came up, emotions or thoughts, and that's okay. You can just jot them down in a moment. But it may be that actually your body feels calm. It may be that your mind's a lot quieter than it would be normally. So just give yourself permission just to enjoy these feelings, these sensations, or the absence of the feelings and sensations. And then take a really nice deep inhale. Take a big sigh out. And yeah, I hope you found that tapping helpful. I hope it felt calming and relaxing. It would be a great one to do every day, as I said before the start of the video, to help kind of with the process of healing. And then you can use your basic recipe as and when you need it in the moment. And if anything else did come up, pop it down in your journal. Like, some memories could have popped up, or some of the feelings could have popped up, and they're little invitations for exploration. Again, like I said, you may choose to look deeper into those things by yourself or with an EFT practitioner, especially if anything came up that you feel a little unsure about. I would always say, come and work with the safety of a practitioner for anything that feels a little bit too big. Or it may be that you feel quite happy to carry on working through some of this stuff yourself. So I just really hope that you're going to be going away with some tools to really help with your anxiety and help with some anxiety relief. I hope that you find the relief that I did with EFT. And yeah, just keep coming back to this video as many times as you want. So where to go from here? First and foremost, I just want to say thank you for being here and taking the time to watch this masterclass. I hope you feel empowered with some tools to help relieve you of your anxiety symptoms or help to give you a way to help to manage some of those. I hope you feel like you've got a little bit of a better understanding of EFT and how that can help you as well. And you may be wanting to dive deeper into this. It may be that some other stuff came up for you. So please reach out if you feel compelled or ready to dive deeper. Maybe go to the root cause of where your anxiety is coming from. It could be some kind of, it could be trauma. It could be certain situations. It could be a whole host of different things, and actually in an EFT one-to-one, the tapping itself has a real magic way of bringing to the surface stuff from your subconscious that needs to be healed. I think that's what really sets it apart from talk therapy, because in talk therapy, you need to know what it is that you want to talk about. Whereas in EFT, you might come for anxiety, but actually what then comes to light is, a situation when you was at school and somebody said something to you, and we can clear the negative emotions out from that situation. That's kind of quite a really general description of what could happen. But yeah, just know that EFT one-to-ones go a whole deeper level. And there's some real incredible healing that takes place in the one-to-one space. I testament to that from my own healing and for the healing of my clients. I've dealt with people who just are wanting to be more confident and get on with stuff at work, to literally the opposite end of the spectrum with really, really complex trauma. EFT really can be applied to any situation, any sort of disruption in your energy, any sort of negative emotion. So yeah, if when the time comes you feel ready to dive a little deeper, please reach out to me. If you've got any questions about this, please reach out to me. Please feel free to share with whoever you like. The main purpose of this was just to spread the word about EFT and to know that there's such a simple way to get relief for anxiety. So it would make me really happy if you shared it with anyone else who needed it too, and it would make me extra happy to find out that it served you as well. So please feel free to let me know that too. So for now, I'm going to say goodbye, and hopefully I will see you around somewhere. Oh, if you don't follow me on socials, please do. It's Liberate EFT and Yoga. I post tapping videos, I post meditations, other things like that. I've got some other freebies on there as well. I've got an introduction to EFT mini course as well, which kind of digs a little deeper into like the benefits of EFT. So yeah, that's me for now. Goodbye.